Hey, it's Cherry Pizza here, welcoming you to the first on-location edition of the Oz Chronicles. I'm coming to you today from the New South Wales Rail Museum in Thornhead to give you a soot-filled eye view from a rickety seat with a movie that tries its very best to use the old-timey mystique of a train to enlighten viewers. If this scenery here doesn't absorb you into 2011's After the Wizard, nothing will. You think I'm exaggerating right now, don't you? Wait and see. Speaking of scenery, the movie opens with a series of master shots of a lifeless, slow-moving atmosphere, doing everything it can to endorse the notion that Kansas is a flat, dreary place where imagination is a dirty word. It's things like this that make me really wonder whether the Kansas Tourism Board really loves or really hates the Oz franchise. And so the sequence continues for a good minute and a half until the serenity is disrupted by... Ooh! A complication being introduced, an adventure unfolding, a tale of self-discovery being foreshadowed, or maybe just a dog being abandoned. And for another minute and a half, the dog wanders through a series of still lifeless but increasingly more urban scenery until stopping at an orphanage where some true action's unfolding.
What do we do when our buddy is in distress?
Raise our hand and call for help.
That is correct, Christopher. Thank you.
Don't worry, Mrs. Murphy. We've only run tornado drills 1,000 times.
1,000 times would never be enough. A tornado drill is mandatory procedure in these parts with good reason. And I don't need to remind you, it is tornado season now.
The unimpressed girl with her arms folded is far from motivated by these words. As you'll soon discover, she's been through much more than this, apparently with some ordeals being more real than others. She ended up at the orphanage after spending time in a string of foster homes. And her name is...
Your name is Elizabeth.
My name is Dorothy Gale.
And your friends have come to visit from the land of Oz?
Yes, ma'am. The Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman.
Of course she means that special sort of friend that only seems to appear when others aren't around, and very conveniently arrives when, whichever name you choose to call her, is reading about their adventures together. Now, before you meet her friends, you must revisit the title sequence. Particularly one very special credit. You know that if a movie has a... You're in for something really special, right? Right?
You're here.
Thank heavens we found you.
I've been waiting for you.
I'll rust to pieces if my heart doesn't burst of happiness first.
And it's here that viewers are left to ponder the eternal question, what on earth is going on? Or on a more practical level, why have these people come all this way to see Dorothy? I think I'll let them answer that one.
Well, after the wizard left,
Yes?
things went badly in Oz.
Well, if that's not enough backstory for you, I don't know what is. But if you're still unsatisfied, take solace in knowing that you'll be treated to the inspiration behind the trip to Kansas.
I feel hopeless.
The situation is dangerous. I'm scared. Think of something. I know you can.
I don't know why I didn't think of it before.
Think of what?
There's only one person with the wisdom and know-how who could possibly help us.
Who then?
Dorothy.
What are you doing?
Oh, and of course the excuse for leaving the lion behind.
King of the forest. We'll see about that. Yes, we will. Come on on, Lion, get in! Go!
Now, never mind the fact that Dorothy, or Elizabeth, being such an avid reader of the book, would know that the winged monkeys came under Glinda's command at the end of the first story, and it's strongly implied that she ensured they wouldn't be performing any more bad deeds. You can't let that stand in the way of finishing the lion's scene so they can return the suit to the costume hire place and get their deposit back.
Who's first?
Okay, sorry, my mistake. I just made you a little bit less enchanted by the movie. Can I make it up to you by assuring you that you can get some subtle green screen technology?
Watch to the south and west. There's no telling how long this trip may take us or what we may encounter.
Some so close but so far makeup application. A dramatic landing in New Jersey. These school kids who seem to think nothing of a couple of cosplayers just casually hanging around outside their school gate.
Greetings, Munchkins. They seem friendly. Munchkins of Kansas, hello.
Hello, Scarecrow. Hello, Tin Woodman.
Oh, you know who we are.
And are perfectly capable of spewing out nationalistic
At
pride.
least you landed in the right country. You might have landed in China. Or Ethiopia. Or Italy. Or a country in North America besides the United States. Like Canada.
Now, as for those two guys mistakenly calling the kids Munchkins, whether this story is a figment of Elizabeth, aka Dorothy's imagination, or something that actually happened to the two of them, everyone should know Munchkin equals somebody who lives in the eastern portion of the land of Oz, which this is not. Given that the Tin Woodman was in love with a Munchkin girl before he was turned into a tin body with no heart, he would definitely be aware of it. It seems that the writer of this movie, who incidentally is also the director, Hugh Gross, just clutched onto this MGM-imposed notion that Munchkin equals small person. But even bigger than that, why is this New Jersey teacher not the least bit disturbed by these two creepy guys hanging around outside a school, talking to the kids?
Oh, I assure you that what happens in Oz is of great importance to people living in other places. I, for one, I have never forgotten how many times as a child I imagined what it must be like to be in Oz and wished that I could help.
You can help.
I'm going into the city this afternoon. If you wait until 3 o'clock, I'll give you a ride to Penn. That is Pennsylvania Station.
And after another formulaic worlds colliding exchange in which the Scarecrow and Tin Woodman swap one of their emeralds for some emerald paper, in other words, greenbacks, to buy a train ticket, and a standard clueless tourist scene in which they learn that more than one state has a Kansas City, it's onto the train, where our two friends experience all of the enlightenment that goes with watching the scenery roll by.
Steel against steel. A sound I know well. I was nearly a rusted hulk of metal myself before Dorothy and you came along to rescue me.
If that's not enough, you can start to have faith that 10 minutes of exposition from a blind passenger explaining everything from the geography of Kansas to the significance of the Wizard of Oz must be getting us closer to finding out what the point of this movie actually is. Maybe we can pin our hopes on this public service announcement.
I consider it one of my greatest blessings as a young man that I learned to read.
How did you do that?
A system of raised dots on paper, known as Braille. I'm able to read by touch. Reading has allowed me to see things I otherwise never would have seen, to visit places I've never been to meet people I otherwise would never have met.
So there it is, maybe, hopefully, the movie wants to encourage reading. The moral is that you'll never be alone or sad as long as you have your paper friends nearby, that everything's going to be okay for Elizabeth. Wonderful sentiment, which sadly is challenged when the next words in the movie are...
Tell me, how are things in Oz these days?
Terrible. There's no cooperation of any kind. People wake up in the morning thinking only of themselves, and then they go to bed at night scolding themselves for not having been more selfish during the day.
clearly the writer does not follow his own advice. Since that did not happen after the wizard left, he obviously has not read the Oz books. We're more than halfway through the movie now, and we have something that might be hinting at a moral. We have some hints that might be telling us this character's motivation for travelling so far, and a journey that still isn't over. So let's just take a bus ride the rest of the way to Kansas, snap some selfies like any self-respecting tourist, visit a public library to help them understand their own fame.
That's you. That's you.
Do a lot of misguided wandering. Finally, with half an hour of the movie remaining, tell Dorothy what's wrong in Oz.
There's no use pretending with you. No longer in charge of the Emerald City.
And I'm no longer in charge of the Winkies. The citizens of the Emerald City only respected the Scarecrow because they were afraid of the wizard. When they realized that the wizard wasn't coming back, they began to do whatever they wanted.
And that didn't include listening to me.
Things didn't go much better for me. After you melted the Wicked Witch of the West, there was unanimous agreement that I should lead the Winkies. But admiration and respect quickly turned to resentment and anger.
How is this plot point wrong? Let me count the ways. 1. Disrespect and resentment would never have been issues in the Land of Oz. The books are filled with quirky social commentary all about how your personal ranking determines your worth. People of Oz would never have turned on their leaders like this. 2. Yes, the Scarecrow was usurped in the second book, but this was due to General Ginger's army, which I've talked about in previous videos, and it was nothing like what these characters have just described. 3. This would suggest that Dorothy, being an avid fan of the book, has not read any of the other books in the series and has no idea of what actually happened after the wizard left. Given that the second book, The Land of Oz, is the only book that doesn't feature Dorothy, this movie would have made so much more sense if it made reference to that book's events. Elizabeth would be so determined to rush to Oz and help these characters, as only Dorothy can, and the characters would be so determined to find Dorothy for this help. As it stands, we're stuck with a plot that makes me question another claim made in the opening credits. The two Oz refugees realise that the one way they can put something right for somebody is to reunite Dorothy with Toto. That little dog who was wandering around at the start of the movie becomes Dorothy's pet after a 5-minute scene in the animal shelter, filled with plot recaps and philosophical blabber that could easily have been covered in this one sentence.
I understand you came here looking for a particular dog named Toto. But if a child once loved this dog and named it Toto, let me hear you tell this dog he is not Toto.
You can't just get a dog and live happily ever after. We need something to happen, and we only have 20 minutes left in the movie. Is there anything our two new friends can find?
Favor to ask.
Anything.
Mrs. Murphy keeps a file on each of the children in her office. The files are held in a metal cabinet. I'd like you to read my file this evening while everyone's asleep.
Well, this has got to be juicy.
That file, it must be.
She has a hard time distinguishing between what's real and what's imagined.
Is that so unusual?
And often engages in conversation with imaginary friends. Most recently, she claims that the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman have come to visit.
We have come to visit.
And the girl believes that she is Dorothy and has been to Oz.
That's more than a belief. A fact is a fact.
So, people from different realms have different ideas of what's real. Nice philosophical statement, not really a plot resolution. Can you maybe give me a little bit more?
As a young woman, her confusion has the potential to create havoc for her and for others. I've therefore reluctantly come to the conclusion that absent a dramatic turnaround, other options must be considered.
Yes! Finally! The movie and I see eye to eye! Give us this dramatic turnaround! You've got 14 minutes! You can do it!
Tornado?
It wasn't supposed to end this way.
No! No! Now is not the time to start becoming a self-aware character, lady. Do not deny us the opportunity to have something, anything, happen in this movie!
Stay in one line. Come on, let's keep going. Stay with each other. Hang out of each other's hands. Come on, everybody, let's go. Keep moving, let's go.
Come on, Elizabeth. If anyone knows how to build drama out of a tornado, it's you!
Come on, everybody, let's go. Keep moving, let's go. Let's go, keep moving. Move along, let's go, let's go.
Mr. Murphy! Elizabeth! I don't want to live here anymore!
I have no idea where this is going, but finally, it's going somewhere.
I won't leave without you!
And in a movie filled with no dramatic curveballs, let's just cram as many as we can into its parting minutes. Let's let the three friends share how much they mean to each other. But then...
We're going to leave you now.
What?
Thank you for everything.
Yes, thank you.
I can't stand to stay here by myself.
We love you.
That will never change.
Don't leave me!
Goodbye, Dorothy. Goodbye.
No!
So apparently there isn't a moral about reading after all. Apparently the books that gave us hope and friendship earlier in the movie are just going to portray us like everything else does. Apparently reading leads to unhealthy obsessions that puts our lives in danger. Now, speaking as a former English teacher, do you think this is a moral I want to be spreading? Do you think it's a message I want coming from the land of Oz? Well, if the main plot, as much as you can call it that, doesn't leave us with any warm fuzzies, let's check in with the subplot. The upcoming changing of the guard at the orphanage as Mrs. Old exchanges reflections with Mr. New. Then our last chance for an epiphany. Come on, don't let us down. We're begging you.
You were just enforcing the rules. You had no choice. I had a choice.
It's possible. I've been too rigid.
Do you think she'll survive? You saw what it was like out there.
Assuming she does, do you have any issues about letting her stay?
No, I don't.
And if that moment of enlightenment isn't enough, we end with an accurate throwback to the first book, when Elizabeth and Toto are found taking refuge in the cellar, just like Dorothy before them. And with that, we all live happily ever after, I guess. And to you, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a lovely what's-her-name.